And we are back to discuss some Star Trek Picard. Now, of course, I'm not a big Star Trek fan like Preston is, but we have a remedy for that. We brought in special guest Phil TheIssuesGuy, who's been with us before. Hello, Phil.
Hey, great to be here. Great to talk about some Star Trek.
Yeah, so Phil, you and Preston are both like the Star Trek guys. I like binged the hell out of Deep Space Nine like a long time ago, and it took me at least 2 months to get through it. And I gotta say, even though I haven't seen Voyager, I've seen a little bit of Enterprise, and I haven't seen much of the original series, I gotta say, Deep Space Nine is king. I love it. And because it's like kind of like Game of Thrones in space with the war and politics, I love it. It's so good. Cisco is the best captain, hands down. Fuck anybody, fight me.
Absolutely.
I love
and then you have
Cisco.
Quark and Garrick, and you have all the alien races that more than just caricatures in the background. They're actually real, engaging characters. I think Deep Space Nine ages the best in modern TV with the ongoing storylines and such.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Also, they didn't do the reset button a lot. With episodic stories, something major happens, and then the next episode, and no one remembers all of the relationships and weird things that they'd gone through in episodic stories. So, I mean, Deep Space Nine was my favorite as well.
Me too. And what's interesting about the modern Trek, whatever you think about the storylines, it's most representative of Deep Space Nine with like the ongoing storylines. It seems like each one of the new series are more trying to emulate that rather than the episodic stuff. You have the Orville for that, like the episodic Star Trek.
Yeah, the real Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, they say it's more Star Trek than Star Trek, so.
It's interesting because I'm not a huge Seth MacFarlane fan, but I love the Orville. He seems to just have a good understanding of what I liked about Star Trek, but I'm not like the biggest Family Guy fan or anything like that.
Well, that's what's funny about like you guys, like you older Star Trek fans. You kind of like miss the TNG style era. Like Preston and I both watch Red Letter Media, and every time they have a Star Trek review of like the new stuff, they always bitch about like, where the new stuff is going. And I kind of, seeing Deep Space Nine and seeing some of the episodes of TNG, I kind of agree. Like the old Trek feels a little better. The new Trek feels a little too J.J. Abrams for me.
Yeah,
just a tad.
It's a little bit too much Kurtzman all up in it. And I also watch Red Letter Media. I'd watch Rich Evans talk about Star Trek for hours and hours on end. He's my spirit animal.
It's true. I mean, they know it better than, like, I've seen every episode of Trek. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, except for Discovery. I haven't seen Discovery, but I've seen every episode of Trek. But I haven't seen every episode of Trek multiple times and can like pull out the actors that, appeared in season 4, episode 3 and see them in a movie and all of that and like recognize where they're from. Like they're really crazy. As many Trekkers are, but
is it Trekkers or Trekkies?
No, so that's the thing is a Trekker is a Star Trek fan. A Trekkie is a derogatory term for a Star
Jesus,
Trek
I'm so sorry.
Yes, it's an insult. There was a whole documentary film before being in a fandom was cool. Star Trek fans would be very, very, very meanly be called Trekkies. You geeky Trekkies.
Well, I apologize to the Trekkers. I did not know this, but
oh my god, there's an incredible documentary hosted by Denise Crosby, the Tasha Yar character, who she goes around the country like meeting Trekkers, and it's an amazing documentary. But there's a hilarious one where she goes to this person's house and she paints her own like Star Trek paintings, and one of them is this erotic picture of her and Data together, and it's just really weird to see like Denise Crosby like looking at this erotic painting of her with Brent Spiner, like being like, oh, that's interesting.
Those were the days.
But all that aside, let's get to the meat and potatoes of what we're here to discuss. Star Trek Picard, which I just actually, I do this thing where, this is why I can't watch movies anymore. I do this thing where I'll watch half of it and I'll get like, I gotta get up, I gotta do other things. So I just finished the second half of it.
The second half is notably different from the first.
Mm-hmm. It is. The second half of the first episode of season 2. Okay, so let's get to the first thing. They killed off screen his Romulan gardener guy, Zhabon.
Yeah, just so they could try to have a romance.
That's so fucked up. What the fuck? Why would you even have him in the first place then? Just have her.
And not just that, they made her have to say how Romulans get over people quick. And the next person that they get with, it's even hotter.
Yeah. It's funny because I won't say that the scene was poorly done, but it's still a fucking like ancient Patrick Stewart in the scene. And you know, like, and look, I also have to say, I am happy to say that Patrick Stewart has upped his acting game from last season. Last season he was phoning it in 100%. Like, he's just reading lines with no emotion connected to what's going on in the scene. I'm not saying he's great this season, but at least in this episode, he's you can believe that he's there versus just some dude reading lines, you know?
I agree. It also felt like he was more engaged in the story. And just as a general statement, I felt a lot more of a Star Trek-y vibe in it, whether that's the Next Generation music that they undercut certain scenes with, or making sure you mention Sulu at one point in the episode, or the Kobayashi Maru, or the Stargazer being the title of the episode. They made sure that, or a Spock reference about a book Spock wrote. You know, they put like these little Trek things all throughout. But I also agree. I think Patrick Stewart, for whatever reason, seemed like he was sleepwalking a lot of last season, and this season he at least seems engaged, like he's trying more.
Yeah. Now I thought that the scene, like the actress playing the Romulan did an incredible job, and she sold the scene, but it's still ridiculous that she'd be like, "Oh, I'm in love with you." 100-year-old Picard, an 80-year-old Patrick Stewart, like, I want to get with you, like come
Preston,
on. Like, you
stop
know?
it.
No,
Actually, I have to ask you guys this question, both of you, since you guys keep in mind I was born in 91, and I think you both were watching Star Trek TNG before I was even born. Would that be accurate for either of you?
Probably. I was watching Patrick Stewart being creepy in the episode Tapestry, probably right around the time you were born.
Yeah.
He was also in Dune, just so we know, in the 80s movie Dune. But I have to ask you guys, is it weird watching, like, I'm assuming Patrick Stewart is one of your favorite actors. Mm-hmm. Is it weird watching this guy, like, from way back when, be this older now? Like, does it feel weird? Because, like, all my favorite actors, they're pardon me for saying this, they're nowhere near as quote unquote ancient as Patrick Stewart is. So is it kind of weird watching Jean-Luc Picard, you know, age this much and, you know, struggle to, like, because it did seem a little weird that they forced this love plot with him and this other woman. I
mean, I would say that it's not as weird with Patrick Stewart because he's never really disappeared from the public eye, and so you see him age slowly. It's weirder when you haven't seen someone in forever, and then you see them and they've changed a lot. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone to a reunion or if you've run into somebody you haven't seen in 10 years and they've gotten fat and bald, and you're like, oh, you're not the person that I knew. And like, you know, it's a little shock of mortality at you. Like, oh gosh, we're all aging, because we don't even think about our own aging, because we look in the mirror and we see a micro change every day, and so we don't really notice. But then when you see somebody you haven't seen in 10 years, you're like, oh, Patrick Stewart, he's been in our eyes, like, constantly for the past...
Professor X and X-Men. And,
you know,
and then he had his whole thing with Ian McKellen being in the public eye with all those photos. We kind of saw Patrick Stewart age gracefully, but then you see someone like, what happened to Brendan Fraser? And then Brendan Fraser shows up and you're like, oh, he had a bad couple of years. And I love Brendan Fraser, but you're right. If you don't see somebody for a while, if you don't see a musician perform for a while, and they go out of the spotlight to record an album, and then suddenly you see them on stage and you're like, whoa, what happened to this person? Rather than if you see someone like Paul McCartney, for instance, gradually get older in the public eye.
Yeah.
Gotcha. How did you both? So the first half is them really reintroducing the characters from last season, which most of them I really did not give a fuck about. Dr. Girardi, the blonde who killed her boyfriend, I'm surprised she's not in jail because she straight up killed that fucking guy.
Did they retcon something? Because she mentioned an alien-induced alien-induced insanity to let her off of the murder of her boyfriend, which Is that a retcon?
I think so. I think some parts of this episode did seem like last year they were trying to go, yeah, you guys remember last year. That was so long ago. Let's just go whatever. So whether it was a retcon or they just kind of, she fast talked her way through it in a sort of yada yada kind of way to just be like, yeah, look over here. You look at the monkey over here.
Lampshade. Lampshade. We mentioned it. Done.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not in jail for murder.
And Carmine's right. That's what the whole first half of this episode was. It was playing the check-in game. Check in on the samurai guy. Check in on Raffi. Check in on Seven of Nine, who's now a full-on action hero instead of a scientist. Check in on her little Khal Drogo projection thing that's going on right there.
I had totally forgot, and I'm glad they did that check-in because I had forgotten that he had a bunch of holograms that looked like him on his ship. And so I was like, wait, what happened to him? Why is he speaking a different language? And why does he have a beard? And then I was like, oh, right. He has all of those holograms. Oh.
And they're all combined into one now. So that's why... That's what happened. They're all combined into one, so that's why there's not like a bunch of them all over the place.
They have been assimilated, so to speak.
Pretty much, actually.
Oh, sorry.
So the first half is like reintroducing everybody, but I don't understand why we're focusing so much on the fact that Picard doesn't have a girlfriend. I'm sure this will somehow. I'm tie in with Q trying to teach Picard it's okay to love your gardener's girlfriend who died, but like we're gonna waste a Guinan cameo for them to talk about the fact that he's just afraid to open up to women, really, or to anybody in general.
By the way, I hope that's not the only Guinan cameo, but it's so weird because Guinan. Like, Whoopi Goldberg was really acting. Like, she was really trying.
Dude, she was so happy to be there. Like, she's always been so excited to be a part of Star Trek, and it showed in her performance in this one as well. She really was locked in.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, can she just come back every episode? Because she cares. Like,
well... Speaking of which, so we have Guinan, and of course, with Guinan, you have to have Q. Now, before we get to Q, Preston said something several podcasts ago where we discussed Star Trek. Borg all the time. Borg here, Borg there. We got to bring in the Borg.
Oh, did you see the previews? I mean, if you saw the previews for the season, I watched the this season on Picard, and I was just like, they essentially. Like, we're in a focus room and they're like, okay, what do people like about Star Trek? And people are like, Borg, yeah, okay, it's in. Okay, Q, yeah, it's in. Picard, yes.
Brent Spiner, they like Brent Spiner.
Brent Spiner, yeah. Time travel to modern day. Yes, it's in. Okay, all right, what else? People really like Star Trek 4. Yeah, we'll do Star Trek 4. People really like First Contact. Yeah, let's do First Contact. Like, it's everything. Just thrown at a wall.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I hate the episodes of Star Trek where they go back in the past. I really fucking hate those episodes so much, which is why I'm most likely gonna wait until all the episodes are out and just binge the fuck out of it. I cannot stand the episodes where they go back in the past because I don't care. I want to know what's going on in the far fucking future. Not 3,000 years into the future like Discovery. No, fuck, that's too far. But far into the future where it's like what's going on here. By the way, this also kind of annoys me. We have characters from TNG and Voyager. Great. Where's all the Deep Space Nine characters? Where's Quark? Where's
we had a half a cameo last season where we saw a sign for Quark's bar. That's the closest thing we've had to anything for Deep Space Nine.
That doesn't count.
No.
Well, I was gonna call him Drogo for some reason, but where's Worf? Where's Kira? Major Kira? Where's fucking Bashir? Bashir is great.
Where's Garak, who was set to rebuild the Cardassian race at some point? I'd love to catch it.
Where's Tom Riker? Where the fuck is Tom
Riker? Where is he's in a Klingon prison somewhere, still waiting for his brother to get him the hell out.
God, fucking Preston and Tom Riker. Holy shit. Preston loves Tom Riker. Brings him up every time.
There is a book called Anxiety 2 that talks a little bit about it, but it's an uncanon book that talks about how they break him out of the prison and he ends up having an ongoing relationship with Deanna Troi. It's not a bad read, but it's it's of that era of Star Trek books, like when there was a Kirk one where he's resurrected by the Borg on the planet from Generations. It was of that age of Star Trek books.
But there was a Bajoran on the bridge,
Yes.
And there was a Trill.
And we saw
Count. I want Bashir. I want Worf. I want O'Brien. O'Brien, arguably the best Starfleet officer in history. If you've seen Lower Decks, there's an episode of Lower Decks.
I was trying to think about which episodes of time travel Star Trek I like. I mean, I like Star Trek 4.
Star Trek 4 is the best one, probably.
And I do like yesterday's Enterprise. But I don't even know if that
doesn't
counts.
count. I'll argue with you that yesterday's Enterprise is more a alternate reality story rather than a time travel story like that. I kind of like Past Tense from Deep Space Nine not Past Tense, the one where they Homefront, when they go to the planet and everyone is afraid of Odo. It's like right when they think the shapeshifters are invading. But again, that's more of a modern day. That's not a back in time one.
Right. Even First Contact, which is time travel, isn't much time travel because you're going to such a future time that's in the forest that it doesn't even feel like time travel. When I think time travel, I think of stuff where we're going back to our time, and messing around with stuff. Or something similar.
Time's Arrow from Next Generation, I think is what it's called, where they go back to the West, where I really don't like. I tend to skip those episodes in Next Generation.
Or what's the Deep Space Nine one about the internet? They go back.
Oh. It is. And I think that one might be past. It might be past tense.
Yeah.
The only Deep Space Nine I remember where they go back in time, it's not even a back in time thing. It's a vision that Sisko has where he's in like the 1940s.
Far Beyond the Stars. Great episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like he's discriminated against, which okay, but I still I don't. Oh, no past stuff. Damn it! I hate this past shit. I hate it. I just stay in the future. Fuck. Hate this shit.
You'd hate Enterprise, man. You'd hate
all of Enterprise. Yeah, you'd hate all of it.
No, Enterprise, don't they go forward into the future, kinda, where it's almost alluded that the Klingons joined the Federation? I remember that being a thing. You know what I'm talking about? You have seen some Enterprise, yeah? Like I know.
Well, it's the temporal Cold War, which is just all over the place.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of clips of Enterprise on YouTube, and I love all the Shran stuff. I just like that actor who played wow, I'm forgetting the Dominion ambassador guy. I forgot his.
Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey Combs is his real name.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I love him. He's such a fucking
him as the
great
Andorian. Yeah, actually, in the bar, Guinan's bar, they used an old-timey Andorian in the background instead of the new-timey Jeffrey Combs Andorian. Which, by the way, just throwing that out there.
And I love how her bar's at 10 forward. Ha ha ha! I get that.
But no. So this episode, the big mystery is that, I guess one of the main mysteries for some reason is why Picard is too afraid to let people in. We get some flashbacks with his. Was that his mother?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a recon, or we just something we've never heard before. We've heard this story from Picard, but it was spun in a more positive way. But I guess there was always sort of a hint that there was something more with him and his brother in the family episode, where you seemed like maybe they had a tough upbringing or something. But they made it seem like his father was, Rodney Dangerfield and Natural Born Killers, like really, really evil dude.
Yeah.
Well, you see his mom, it almost looks like she's being killed or something is dragging her like a monster or something. I'm assuming maybe this is something have to do with Patrick Stewart, because I don't know if you guys know this. I actually looked this up before we started. Apparently Patrick Stewart is still going to therapy to get over his rough childhood where he had to watch his father beat his mom. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I did not.
Oh God, no, I
you didn't know that? Okay, so I'm assuming he had some input on the plot there. So I guess
he is a producer on the show, so that would make sense if he wanted to add a little bit more depth to his character, and I think that's part of the reason why he wanted to series.
This explains why he's acting better this season.
Yeah,
he cares.
True.
No, I mean now it all comes together. I'm like, oh, this is now Patrick Stewart's story. Okay,
He believed.
okay, this makes sense. Yeah.
So his mom, whatever happened to his mother and whatever happened to his childhood is one of the mysteries. The other mystery is, what did the Borg want? Clearly they brought him there. They want to negotiate with him specifically. And of course, the Borg could, with their advanced technology, even years after they were first encountered by Starfleet is still behind on technology, I guess, in regards to the Borg. How they're still there, I don't know. Hasn't the Borg been dealt with multiple times and the Queen been destroyed multiple times?
Yeah, Voyager sort of depowered the Borg to a certain extent, and then in First Contact, they kind of got kicked in the gut. So this is the anomaly coming up, the big green anomaly with the apparent Borg Queen coming out. So there was a race in Voyager, race number 0123. I forget what they were called, but they were like the Borg's kryptonite. And
8472.
Thank you. And they had so the Borg were in a lot of danger, and they did make some soft alliances with Janeway, but then Janeway kind of shoved it up their butt. So the Borg this is sort of newness for the Borg. This is one of the parts of the episode that I didn't mind, the whole Borg aspect, even though I agree with Preston. It's like, oh, Borg. We need a villain.
Borg. I'm sorry that I have a frog in my throat, but now you've made me think. It made me think of the 8472 episode, because the 8472 episode, when it first came out, like, fans were creaming their pants, because the Borg are getting their butt kicked, and then they come to Voyager and they pop Janeway aboard, the cube, and they're like, what are your demands? Because like, this amazing like, all of a sudden the Borg are negotiating, and it was like a huge thing. And then, the episode turned out to not be great, and the Borg just went downhill from there. But I do remember, like, the hype of, what are your demands? Of, like, and you're negotiating with the Borg. Oh my God, So it did remind me of that, of Voyager.
But I was speaking for Seven of Nine in that scene, or I was feeling like Seven of Nine, like, what are we doing? And I know maybe that's going to be the whole point, that they should have trusted the Borg Queen in that moment. But I was like Seven of Nine. If I'm wrong, we just kill the Borg ship. If I'm right, we just kill the Borg ship. If I'm wrong, they could take over the whole Federation. We'll kill them now. Ask questions later. So I was laughing at that.
It's funny how much Seven of Nine's character has changed from Seven of Nine in Voyager.
She's more Kira.
When you think
She's more Kira now than she is Seven of Nine, where she has this sort of undercurrent of a revenge for what they did to her. In Voyager, she was always, again, I said it as a joke earlier, but I mean it, she was a scientist. She was Data-ish. She was Spock-ish. She was that for the ship. And she's much more of an revenge action hero a little bit.
That's kind of the big difference between TNG and other shows versus Deep Space Nine, is that with Deep Space Nine, Kira was second in command, but at no point would I ever want Kira in command.
Why?
Oh, because she had such a deep hatred for the Cardassians, and she was so hot-headed that she would get people killed.
Especially young Kira.
And so especially young Kira. She did get better as she went on, but in every moment you're like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, like Cisco is captain. While with anything else, it's not like Chakotay was any different from Janeway. It's not like Riker was any different from Picard. They were all really smart, and so you wouldn't mind the first officer like being in charge. But Deep Space Nine was the first time where the first officer was so flawed, where I'm just like, she is not ready for command. She will kill people and start a war.
They wanted you to think that about Riker, but it wasn't true. They wanted you to be like, Riker is on the edge. He's playing the trombone, and he's wacky, but he wasn't.
He hits on women. He sits in chairs weird.
Yes. The back sit.
The back sit. But yeah, they, like, everyone was so rational on most Star Trek shows, but the fact that Kira was so hot-headed, and granted, they needed her to be the exposition for Bajor because she was the Bajoran character, and so she would they kind of had to force that into her, because anything that didn't deal with Cardassia and Bajor, like, she was fine.
I don't want to turn this into a Deep Space Nine thing, but it's interesting to me that they originally were to cast, or they were looking to cast Ensign Ro in that part, and the Kara character was kind of created from the ground up based on the bones of Ro, and Kara definitely created Nana Visitor created a completely unique character from Ro Laren, but the initial blueprints of the series it was supposed to be Ro, which could make sense, but I don't think it would have worked quite as well. I'm glad she decided not to do the series.
Yeah, and so 7 of 9 has like taken on that role of being the loose cannon.
Yep.
While everybody else, it's like here where we think our captain is a loose cannon. He like smokes a cigar and had his own ship, and you're like, no, you're completely boring and rational. Like 7 of 9 is the irrational character in the room.
Well, like I said, clearly the Borg have the technology to just like pile drive right through the Federation ships, but for some reason they're requesting help or a negotiation for help, and they need power. At this point, I was thinking, wow, that kind of sucks that, because when the Borg starts doing whatever they're doing and all the screens on the ship just start flickering, at one point I'm like, wow, that really sucks to have a ship that's all the controls are hologram instead of like, button pressing like there was in the old days. You know what I'm saying? That really sucks.
And was made with Borg technology. I know I'm going to reference a really stupid movie, but it kind of reminded me of the scene in Howard the Duck when the guy is like, I need power, and he plugs into the car lighter to charge up. 2 people in the world will get that reference, but it'll.
I remember that. It's the isn't it it's the guy from Ferris
Edward
Bueller.
R. Rooney, Dean of Students there.
Yeah.
Phil knows this guy, his people. Jesus Christ, Phil! You know your movie characters.
It's really sad because there was a reunion for Ferris Bueller like during the pandemic, and he wasn't invited.
No, because he's a sketch.
Why?
He's a sketchball. We don't need to go down that road too much.
We don't need to go down that road.
But we'll do some research after the show on the guy from Ferris Bueller, and I'll send you some links.
Please do. And of course, Picard, trying to keep the Borg from taking over the ship, initiates the self-destruct, and it works, kinda. He initiates it, everything blows up, but then he finds himself back in the place from his memories, from his dream. And there we see the main guy, Q himself, and I love that they did a deep fake of Q as a young guy, and then he does the thing, and he becomes older to be on even terms with Picard. I love that. I was waiting for that. I knew they were going to do it, and they fucking did it. I love it. I love it. Hopefully they got the guy that Lucasfilm hired to do the deepfakes, because, so good. So good. I love it. I love it. But,
I like that scene too. It was reminiscent of Nexus-y in a way, Yesterday's Enterprise, in that moment where everything just blew up. There's also another episode where where Data, I think, keeps remembering things, and the ship eventually blows up. It kind of had that kind of peak end of a Next Generation episode feel of everything building together. Preston said at the beginning, 2 halves of the episode. The second half felt way more like a show I wanted to be watching, and everything kept picking up pace and was intense. And I agree, Carmine. I almost wish we were in the era of television where we didn't know everything before we see it, because if that reveal of Q was out of nowhere, out of all of that, and I didn't know John Delancey was in this, and he just shows up right there in that moment, I would have jumped out of my seat, giggled like, oh my goodness, it's Q. And I agree, I really like the deep fake too. I was at first, I'm like, oh, they do this effect, and then it made sense. It was a good way of doing that and just yada-yadaing an immortal, amazing character. And I also like how we'll talk about that later in the episode, but there was a reference of characters like that can pierce through space-time and how alliances work with characters like that. And I thought that was a little bit of a reference to the wormhole aliens from Deep Space Nine. If we're talking about slight Deep Space Nine references. Sorry, I took.
Oh yeah. In fact, everything, because there was such a tonal shift in the first and second half of the episode, it almost felt like the second half of the episode was already in dream sequence because it was so fast paced. Like he leaves Earth and he's immediately at the anomaly, you know, and how the camera was jumping around and everything. It all felt surreal. Versus the first half of the episode where we're catching up with everybody. So I don't know if that was intentional, like, this stuff didn't happen. Maybe the Borg didn't arrive at this anomaly or not. But it already felt a little I don't know, through the looking glass already before the ship is blown up and sent back in time or whatever.
Well, my whole relationship, I guess you could call it, with the Next Generation is I haven't seen all of the episodes. Like I haven't binged it like I did Deep Space Nine. With Deep Space Nine, I saw everything from start to finish. With TNG, I've seen. I've actually gone and watched Red Letter Media's videos of what their favorite TNG episodes were. I watched those. I've gone on the internet and have seen several episodes that people would say are their favorites. So I haven't seen everything. I've seen bits and pieces. And of course, I've seen the first and the last episodes of TNG. And I have to say, that was closure for the character of Q in Picard's life. I don't think we needed Q ever again, though I know that's blasphemy to a lot of Trek fans.
Considering the way they used him, afterwards in DS9 and Voyager, I like his first appearance in Voyager. I think that should have been the last time we saw Q till right now in this moment. So I agree with you. I think that was the perfect closure. And as for not seeing all of Next Generation, I think the way it's structured, you don't necessarily have to, as long as you see those important episodes, season premieres, season finales, multi-part episodes like the Klingon multi-parts. And for the basis of Picard, I would go back and just watch every Q episode, especially Tapestry. I think I've smelled a lot of Tapestry over this episode. Big time with the What If and the Mr. Destiny kind of thing going on, because the last couple of times we saw Q, especially in the final episode in Tapestry, he wasn't, how do I say this without sounding like an idiot? He wasn't not helping Picard. He was actually helping him. So is he helping him here again in trying to get him in? Was that the vibe? That he's coming back and he's reopening the storyline? Because I agree, Carmine, it ended at such a perfect point with him in Picard. There has to be a reason. And I don't think Q is doing this out of malice. And I don't want to get into predictions too early, but that's not Q's style, and it's not where we left off with him. There would be no reason for it.
It does very much feel like Tapestry, especially Tapestry is this TNG episode where Picard remembers being in Starfleet Academy and he gets stabbed in the heart, and he kind of regrets being so risky.
Dumb jock human.
Yeah. And so so Q kind of says, okay, this is your life if you weren't such a risk taker. And his life is like, pretty pathetic. But he does end up, sleeping with his friend from school or whatever. And so I do see a bit of that, because there's regrets with love and there's regrets with life and all of these different things going on with Tapestry. So I almost feel like they must be taking that episode and building the season to that.
I was thinking the same thing.
Well, didn't he have a romantic relationship with the doctor? What's her name?
Beverly Crusher. And in the final episode, he did marry her in an alternate timeline. I would love to see Gates show up. And he also had a relationship. He's had several relationships that were... Guinan was right. They were based around quick relationships that weren't going to last. He had a relationship with a smuggler, a thief, some woman on the ship that he quickly broke up with her and then had her transferred off the ship that he jammed some music with.
What was her name? Vosh? What was her?
Yeah, Vosh with the she was on the frigate. She was in a couple of episodes. She was the only multi-part Picard woman. Yeah. And then Michelle Phillips played a character at some point on the show, as well as his love interest in an early season episode.
And I guess he had a somewhat romantic love interest with the Insurrection, right?
Yes, and sort of I want to say they were hinting at it a little bit in First Contact, but Insurrection full on, where he was with the alien race that live forever and regenerate, and he's like, I'm going to come back here every shore leave, and we never see her.
Never see him again. Yeah. Well, he does always have an excuse, right? And so you're. I mean, they aren't incorrect in saying that he always is finding a reason to be single and push people away, So they're not incorrect about that.
But Carmine, to answer your question, I think, I don't know, it seems like it did end at a perfect time with Q and Picard, and I hope this series justifies his return. And and doesn't do what last season did, where it built up a lot of things that I was hopeful and curious about and didn't pay it off. And I just want to see that they brought him back for a good, interesting reason that actually that pays off. That's all. I want one of these new Star Trek series to pay off and not just build up stuff that they never finish off.
Now, Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there still a plot line with the Q continuum that's somewhat unresolved about the Q continuum dying off and then them having children?
Yes.
And yeah. So, I mean, I do wonder if they're going to touch on the Voyager plot of what's going on with the Q continuum.
They do have 7 of 9 there, so they could easily just bring in Voyager stuff. But my only concern with that is then the writers would probably have to watch Voyager, and I'm not sure if they've watched all of Star Trek sometimes with the way that they're writing 7. But I could see them kind of go to that a little bit, especially if they want to complete off the full-on Borg storyline, which it seems like they're going in that direction. And I wonder if we'll get some references to First Contact because of the last interaction Picard had with the Queen.
Well, are the movies considered canon?
The Next Generation movies are, in fact, in the last one, the one with Venom and Tom Hardy in it, playing young Picard. Janeway is in it as an admiral, so it shows that Voyager has returned in that timeline. So the Next Generation movies are canon. The JJ movies are canon in a weird way, where
the Kelvin timeline.
The Kelvin timeline, where it's Geordi that helped Spock work on the ship that traveled through time to start the whole Kelvin timeline. It was dictated in a Star Trek comic that was leading into Star Trek, the first JJ Star Trek. So all of this is connected in some weird warped way.
Do me a favor, explain to me, because once again, I haven't really seen Voyager much. I'm aware of the joke about all the. I told this to Preston last time we discussed anything Trek. I'm aware of the joke regarding all the captains and their best qualities. Kirk will meet a new alien species and fight it. Archer will meet a new alien species and lose to it in the fight. Sisko will stare down the enemy. Picard will give such a rousing speech that the enemy gives up, and Janeway will encounter an enemy, get her entire crew destroyed and her ship destroyed, and then somehow go back in time and fix the whole thing, and everybody forgets. Like, I don't know anything Voyager besides that 7 of 9 and Borg stuff. So what's up with the Q continuum? They're dying off, and they have to have kids.
Yeah, well, in Voyager, they have an episode in which the Q continuum has decided that a Q wants to die. Not Delancey, but AQ wants to die, and because they've done everything, they've lived for so long and they've seen everything and they've had such omnipotent power that they're just bored with it, and so they resolve the episode by deciding to procreate, and they have a new Q. And then I think the new Q comes back in a sequel episode. And there's like a father-son relationship. And I forget like what the conflict was in the Q2 episode.
Yeah, a lot of those Voyager episodes kind of blend. I know there was something with Delancey, with RQ trying to connect with Janeway and have a baby with her at some point too. There was there was a whole bunch of weird stuff going on with Q. They really. Voyager, God bless its soul, had some good episodes and had some good arcs, but I feel like it got a little. They ran out of ideas because they were doing it very much in the Next Generation style and doing multi-parters while having a soft ongoing storyline. But for the most part, Voyager you can kind of watch episodically as well, or in like mini arcs at times. So they definitely were trying to keep going.
I feel bad that I've forgotten the plot of Q2 because I knew the actor that played Q2.
Wasn't it John Delancey's son?
Yeah, I knew him about 10 years ago when I lived in Jordan. But,
wait.
Oh, you actually knew him? Like when I said you knew him, I thought you meant like you knew the actor's name. You actually knew the guy.
No, yeah, I knew him.
Oh, nice.
I haven't kept touch with him, but I knew him 10 years ago.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I need to. The guy, the Q guy that wants to die in Q2.
No. So after they to revitalize the Q continuum, they decided to have a child, and then the child appears in a follow-up episode, and it's played by John Delancey's son,
Right.
Keegan.
You know Keegan?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't talked to him in 10 years, but yeah.
Wait, hold on a minute. You know the
Wow.
how this fucking guy, Phil, did he tell you that he knows the woman at the center of like one of the largest Bitcoin scandals in history?
No.
Yeah, I knew Heather Morgan. Yeah.
How did whatever.
Preston just finds himself in historical situations, just wandering through.
I'm Forrest Gump. Yeah, I just like stumble through history.
So Keegan DeLance, you met him where?
He was doing a Fulbright program in Jordan at the time. So, and I was living there.
Wait a minute, hold on. He has a brother. So you met him or the brother?
No, Keegan.
He went. Oh, here it is on his Wikipedia page. He has a brother, Owen DeLance, born blah blah blah. Keegan went to Amman, Jordan, on a Fulbright scholarship to study Iraqi refugees. He worked for the International Organization for Migration and helped Iraqi Christians move to Iraq's Kurdish region to avoid violence against them. He became a member of the U.S. Foreign Service. Jesus Christ!
Oh, there's a footnote here. It would often have lunch with Preston Jacobs.
Oh shit!
I wouldn't say often. No.
I can't believe. Did you guys discuss Star Trek?
No, I never did. I never discussed it with him because I figured he was.
That's a good move. When you're in
it,
situations like that, you have to avoid that. You can't just like go and bring up Star Trek. If you hang out with them all the time, eventually that can come up, but you can't lead with the Star Trek there.
Yeah. I mean, we were just acquaintances, and so like, we would be at parties. We'd talk about Jordan and Jordanian stuff, Jordanian politics.
Jordanian politics? No, you got to talk about that time he was on Voyager. Come on.
Oh, but I mean, the Jordanian politics might be more interesting.
What's it like to have Q, an omnipotent father like Q? What is that like?
Yeah. How do you think that would have gone over?
Perfect.
With this episode, it was okay. The first half was whatever. The second half was slightly better, but like I said, I agree with Phil. I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot by announcing that Q was going to be in this episode or in this season specifically, because even during last season, we always speculated, is Q showing up? Is Guinan showing up? What's happening? And it never happened, and they should have kept that going. I would have liked to have been surprised. I love that they do this on Mandalorian, because on Mandalorian, nobody expected Luke to show up, Ahsoka to show up. All of that was kept under wraps for the most part, and the entire audience was caught off guard, and, a nice surprise was given to us, finally. Here, it was kind of ruined by the announcement, like, on the offset, months before the season even premiered. It kind of ruined it a little bit for me.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad that was ruined. How did you guys feel about all of the plot lines that they established in season 1? They didn't retcon and undo them, but they fast forwarded through all of them so that they didn't have to deal with them.
Preston,
anymore.
my favorite one was what they did with Soji. They're like, "Here's Soji, bye. Let's get away from her as quickly as possible."
Yeah. I mean, like, wait, didn't you have your whole planet thing to deal with and your whole people? And they're just like, no, they were accepted into the Federation.
She's on a college tour. She's doing speeches at colleges. Don't worry, she's fine. She's off doing something.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, you set up this, like, mysterious relationship between Seven of Nine and Raffi. Yeah, they did it. It's done. Like, what? They set up this relationship between Chris and Agnes. Yeah, they did it. It's done. Like, they fast-forwarded through all of it.
Like, the incident with the Tal Shiar or the Jacques Vache, that's not coming up anymore.
Nope.
It should kind of be a big deal that Elnor is the first Romulan ever accepted into Starfleet, which is that...
I think he had to say fully Romulan just to, like, cover his bases. Because they're like, wait, do we have a previous episode where maybe a half Romulan? Well, I don't know. Let's say fully Romulan.
Let's make sure. Let's cover it, because we don't really have good lore people working in this show. So yeah, I agree. They kind of just tried to sweep as much of season 1 stuff and just get into the season 2 plot as quickly as possible. And I also, not to reiterate my own point, but when you have an episode that's cliffhanger, a big climactic moment at the end is introducing the character of Q in a way that seems like we shouldn't know that Q's about to show up, and it ends right at the point where you're like, okay, this is going to get interesting in half of a conversation. I feel like that's sort of television blue balls right there, and because they let us, that they told us too much of it. And I agree with you, Carmine. It was okay. It was better than the end half of last season. But but again, it's fool me once, because I kind of liked the first couple of episodes of last season too. And I got into it early, and I was drinking the Kool-Aid, and I was believing that they were going to lead into a lot of things. So right now I enjoyed it, but I'm going to watch it with a very skeptical eye until they really win me over. You know, I don't know. I'm still a little bitter and jaded from the end of last season, turning into an episode of Discovery at the end, and everything goes bang, 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 bang. It was too much.
Yeah, I mean, last season was so dreadful, but you're right that they'd roped me in. I'm like, oh my God, this is going someplace. This is going someplace. No, it's not. No, it's not going anywhere.
Well, last season was just the entirety of last season was, if you ever played the game Mass Effect.
Yeah. Yep.
It's kind of what it was. Though I will say, though, they did have a really cool, brilliant chance of connecting Picard with Discovery and having Control be the villain that was like the tentacle robot things coming through the portal. That could have been Control. The Borg could be running from Control.
That would be an interesting way of connecting the two storylines. That would be kind of cool, but I don't know if they're going for that kind of work. I don't know if that's the kind of thing that they're going for, but we'll see. That would be really interesting, though.
If anything, I was telling this to Preston a while ago, the only thing that I'm really interested in Star Trek coming from, this new era, besides Lower Decks, which is great. I love Lower Decks.
Fun show.
It's a very fun show. The only thing I'm interested in is Strange New Worlds with Captain Pike.
Yeah. He was the shining point for me in season 2 of Voyager, that he was a big part of. So I'm looking forward to that show, because it seems like it might be more Trekkie.
Wait, Captain Pike was in season 2 of Voyager?
Oh, not Voyager. I'm sorry, Discovery. I
right.
That would have been awesome, though. He was in a couple of episodes of South Park, though. They made a teacher. They made a teacher like him. But yeah, I think it seems like it could be a decent season, but I don't want to be fooled again.
Well, Red Letter Media said it best, and I hate to bring them into it, but they're the Trek guys, and they made a good point with Star Wars, and it kind of rings true here. It seems like Star Trek, unfortunately, because Discovery is trying to do new things, but I just don't. I don't know. I just don't like the look of like the Alex Kurtzman, J.J. Abrams style of Trek. I don't know, but the Red Letter Media guys said it best with Star Wars. Star Wars is somewhat creatively bankrupt. It's just the same shit every new iteration. Here, I feel like that's kind of what they're doing again. Is just a Borg, 7 of 9, Data. What else?
But they're at least trying to connect it to the human element. Like, at least there's at least an attempt at the deep dive into Patrick Stewart's psyche that makes it much more interesting than Star Wars will ever be.
Yeah.
Because there's not that examination of the human spirit in Star Wars. Now, granted, they tried to do it last season too, and inventing this weird PTSD regret and about losing Data, despite the fact that Picard has lost so many people over the course of his life.
Isn't Geordi Data's best friend? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I know. Like, his best, right? Stuff like that. Now, granted, I think because this relates to Patrick Stewart's real life, it's going to be better. Yeah. I am a little optimistic about that. I just hope they don't screw it up, which they probably will.
And I also, just to be a little bit more, I guess, on the positive end too, I think all that said, with Patrick Stewart maybe being more invested in the storyline, the human situation, they also, generally speaking, and this is no offense to the actors playing the parts, but Carmine said this earlier, and I forgot to say I 100% agree. I don't care at all about any of these new characters. I'm not invested in them as people. I'm not invested in them. Kind of Raffi maybe a little bit just because the actress is charming playing it. But but other than that, there's nothing really going on with any connection, especially Agnes. I can't stand that character.
No, I think everybody hates Agnes, but I think this episode made me connect with Laris, which makes me sad that she's probably not going to be in the season.
No, same with like last season. Those were two of the more interesting characters, but at least in this season you have John Delancey who's going to try and bring that human element into it too. And I also hope this isn't the only part we saw of Whoopi as well, because what I was so excited about going into this season and my little Star Trek geek thing was I wanted to get more Guinan Q lore. Why was Guinan blocking Q's zaps with her hands? Does her race have some sort of ability to block Q? And also Malcolm McDowell in Generations was the same race as Whoopi Goldberg's character, the Watchers or whatever. They had a name reference today, but I forget what they're called.
I think everybody likes Legolas. I mean,
he means Elnor.
Yeah, he's entertaining. It's bang bang action. It's funny that you said Legolas and you said you said that was the first time I remember his name because I just think about him as Romulan Samurai #1.
Yeah.
Now at least I have another name for him. I can call him Legolas now. Thank you, Preston.
Yes.
Well, before we wrap this up, they went back to 2024 and something tells me they're probably going to do something like cringy and political, some political messaging about the times we live in now, which it's honestly, I'm sorry, but I hate to be one of those people, but it's really not the reason I watch Star Trek. I want to see the future that Gene Roddenberry envisioned, and I'm not here for a political hot take from Alex Kurtzman and the writing team. I'm really not.
I mean, you've got to. It's amazing to me though when people say like, "Oh, I hate the politics of it." It's like Star Trek is a world of communism. Everyone's a communist. Like they've reached communist utopia, and it's like George R. R. Martin. Like he's pretty much literally a communist. Like super left wing. Like, and so when people are complaining about it, it's like, that's just what it is. Like if you want to watch right wing stuff, there's plenty of right wing stuff out there. Like,
nah,
go
not
for
really.
It,
I mean, you watch Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine was a huge like political thing for the wars and war commentary and everything like that. Star Trek's always kind of been used like that. In Carmine, the truth of the matter is, whether it's in there or not, people are going to complain and say it's there.
And that's the point I was trying to make, is that like what I don't understand is, well, grifters are going to grift, they're always going to bitch and complain, but how can you bitch and complain about this stuff being political? Everything we've ever liked since the history of time, like Star Wars, the Beatles, like Star Trek, everything we've always ever liked has always been political. You were just too young to notice
you want a revolution. Yeah, sorry.
See, exactly. Yeah. Like everything we've ever liked has always been political. You're just now noticing it because the political messages being conveyed don't align with your own personal politics anymore.
Because like, politics and that sort of thing is the grunge music of the time, or the hip thing is to have like everyone arguing and butting heads in this way and pointing it out. This is political. This is woke. This is that. This is whatever. When it's always there. People always have agenda in their art. It's been there since the beginning of time. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to work on critical thinking in ourselves to be able to watch art and pick and enjoy it for good or for bad, regardless of those things, and take those things for what they are, as messages, lessons, feelings that the creator has, but it has nothing to do with your enjoyment on said thing. Is it done well or is it done poorly? That's how I judge things. Heaven is something heavy-handed, or does it actually work? Every episode of South Park is political in some way. I still think it's funny as hell, even if I don't agree with what Matt and Trey are saying in that particular episode.
I mean, there's an old episode of Trek where they go to a planet where one half of the planet, the people's faces are half white, half black, and then the other half of the planet, they're also half white and half black, but it's reversed, and they hate each other, and they have a race war, and everybody's like, and they're sitting there going, how is it possible that these people are at war over something so ridiculous as skin color? Why, like, it was so heavy-handed. Like, and that's Star Trek. Like, that was the original Star Trek. Very famous episode. very heavy-handed. I would not say it's a well written episode, but Star Trek has always been doing this from the beginning of time, from the beginning of its creation. And you know, heavy-handed politics has always been Star Trek.
Yeah, it's in the mission statement.
Yeah, it's in the mission statement. Now, I'm back on this so the anti-woke, anti-SJW people, like, because I've been seeing a lot more of the Lord of the Rings stuff, and they've come out of the woodwork about Lord of the Rings, even though we know nothing about Lord of the Rings, that I'm now like, I'm just aware of it and kind of pissed off about it. It's like, look, the show might suck. It might have bad writing, but it has nothing to do with the fact that there's a black dwarf.
Who cares?
Okay? Just shut the fuck up.
Who cares? Is the show good or is the show bad? Is it going to be produced well? Is all the money that they put into it going to be a waste? Are the people that worked on early Game of Thrones going to be working on the show and give us a good program or not? That's all I care about. Shut up about that other stuff. No one cares. You know, good. Right. Give whoever's the best actor. Having gone to acting school, the best directors teach you whoever's the best actor gets the parts. Who cares what all those other things are intangible bullshit. You know?
Yeah. And you know that, like, if it goes wrong, they'll be like, oh, well, the reason it was wrong is because it was trying to be woke. And you're like, no. Like, you think if it's like all white men going around doing right-wing stuff, like, it's going to be good entertainment. Like, those things exist. They're not fantastic.
Every song Bob Dylan ever wrote was woke, and I'm pretty sure most people think of him as a good songwriter. And it doesn't matter. Who cares? You know, when it really comes down to, is the art good or is it good? Yeah. I mean, sometimes you want to be influenced or you want to see something that pushes you in a particular direction, and then read some essays, do some stuff like that, some political essays, some or whatever, like study some deeper thoughts. Art is for art's sake by its very definition. In some ways, I think it's for distractions and for.
I mean, Watchmen was probably the most woke thing I've ever seen, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great show.
Phil, have you seen the show? Yeah.
Oh yeah, great show.
I mean, it's so hyper woke, and it's really fucking great too. I just don't think, like, if you have good writing and you have good characters and you have good story, like, it's gonna show.
Yep.
So
that's the one thing about, like, that's one of the things I was gonna say about The Witcher. Like, if The Witcher sucks, it's not because, you know, there's a black elf. It's because the writers suck. That being said, what do you guys, before I wrap this up, what do you guys want? What is your wish list for Picard season 2? My wish list is, let this be the last season, which it's not going to be. Let Sir Patrick Stewart rest, for the love of God. But that's my wish list. I'm already not going to get it. But Phil, what would you like for this season to succeed?
Okay, for it to succeed, I think you just need to have each individual episode be clever and interesting and have a storyline that carries through and some big payoff. Just the basic things. I don't want them, they don't need to try anything. No heavy-handed steps here. And I don't mean in the message, I just mean in the way that they try the storytelling. I think if you could just deliver us a good space sci-fi story, learn from, I mentioned the Orville earlier, but sometimes some of the best stories are simple stories within a Star Trek thing. But my dream scenario for this season would be to have Beverly Crusher show up, Geordi show up, Worf to show up, that all these people from Picard season 1 die in episode 3, and then Picard's reunited with his old crew that needs to solve this mystery, and the rest of the season is a Next Generation season, because I'm curious of all of those characters, and I think it would be interesting and I enjoyed when Riker showed up last season, like when they were cooking pizzas and stuff. I enjoyed the pizza party episode last season. So that's my dream. But realistically, I just want to see this storyline pay off at least as well as Discovery season 2 did with the Red Angel thing. Like, at least that carried you through a little bit and helped. And I was interested from week to week through some of the trash that was going on. So yeah. That's what I want, for the story to actually make sense.
I mean, for me, I don't care so much about the cameos. Like, we already know that the original Borg Queen is showing up, and we've already seen Q and Whoopi and things like that. I guess I'm really wanting consistency. Like, I want and I mean consistency between, like, across the season. Like, I want that. I like last season 1 was so disjointed, and it's like we were watching a completely different show at the end. You know, people just disappearing, like what happened to all the people on the Borg cube and stuff like that, like motivations completely changing. I just want consistency, a story that makes sense from beginning to end. I don't even care if it's that connected to the previous Trek. I just want something that from episode 1 to episode 10 or whatever, for it to be a cohesive story. Like it's a very low fucking
I know,
bar.
I was just going to say that. Isn't it funny that both of us basically said, we just wanted to, make sense from beginning to end. That's like our biggest wish. That shouldn't be a wish. This isn't Westworld we're watching here. This is Star Trek. Can it make sense a little bit?
Westworld, that's another one.
Okay, icing on the cake. I would like, because we are bringing back the Borg Queen, we are bringing back Q. Icing on the cake. If you can make the original appearance of the Borg and First Contact and Q and the Q continuum from Voyager and all of that all fit together into a story that makes sense, that would be my icing on the cake. I don't think that'll happen.
No.
I don't think they're going to be doing that.
No, they don't have the power.
By the way, like I said, I'm probably, Press, I don't know about you. I'm probably just gonna wait for all the episodes to come out and just binge it. And I'm assuming
we'll see. I mean, because we still don't know why Q would want to warn Picard about the Borg. Like how is it in the Continuum's best interest and things like that. There's lots of mysteries that you could explore to try to connect the original. I think it's Q Who is the original Borg episode.
Where he snaps and brings them back. But will they do that, Preston, or will this end up just being a big bang, 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 bang thing at the end again? Do you think they're actually going to do one or any of those things that you mentioned that would be awesome there?
I think what I think will happen probability wise, based on like what I hear of Star Trek Discovery and what part Picard season 1 was, is you're going to have a bunch of episodes that throw in some cameos, use a lot of the tropes from Star Trek, like time travel, and then it'll feel disjointed, but it'll feel like it's going someplace. And then at the end, there's going to be a big rumble fight where everybody from the previous episodes shows up again, and they're going to do a big rumble fight, and it's not going to really make sense. And then that'll be the end.
Yep.
That's what I think is going to happen. Now, like, I hope that doesn't happen. But I think that's going to happen. There's going to be some CGI rumble fight in space where I'm like, what's going on?
Carmine, can we use the time travel machine to go 10 weeks in the future? And it happened. It definitely happened. We're going to go back in time now again, but we're back to the
poor Patrick Stewart. Like, his last hurrah really should have been like, Jean-Luc Picard and TNG. That really should have been his last hurrah.
It should have been Logan. His last performance, he should have retired from acting after Logan. I thought that was a great final performance from him, and it worked. Him getting older worked in that particular role, but it's definitely showing a lot more, and it definitely shows, again, I don't want to keep mentioning the theme, but the opening theme where you get the picture of Patrick Stewart coming up at the end, just standing at the camera like you're in a 1970s soap opera, where he's just sitting there like, hi, it's the Patrick Stewart show.
Whenever I look at Patrick Stewart, all I think is, man, if I were a hot Romulan woman, I would just fuck his brains out. That's all I think about.
We should kill her.
It's like she's the hottest Romulan we've seen, right? Romulans usually have bad haircuts and frumpy outfits and
unless
everything.
You're into other Tasha Yar, she's probably the hottest Romulan. So basically, again, I feel like we started here. We need to end here again, just to reiterate the fact that they killed off her husband in mid-season off camera, just so they could give Patrick Stewart a completely unbelievable love interest in this season.
Yes, so now we've brought it full circle, and we have closure. but something Picard will never have.
No, it will happen again between seasons. She'll move back in, and they'll say, between seasons, I had another husband, and I lost him too. It's the third lover that really counts.
You know what this is? You know how this kind of is all full circle with life is. You know how there's a few things that you watched when you were super, super young where you don't remember the first time you ever saw it. So for me, for instance, Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark, I don't remember the first time I ever saw those movies. So the unfolding of the narrative was never an experience for me. I always kind of just knew all of the events at once. Because and that's the way entertainment is going now. Like, we're finding out all the events before we see the narrative unfold.
It's a perpetual Arrested Development. It's everyone wanting to feel like that child and feel like they know everything.
My life is coming full circle with entertainment. Yeah. I'll never experience a narrative unfold in front of me ever again.
And I feel like this is kind of Game of Thrones' fault too. I feel like this all started with Game of Thrones with people. I mean, spoilers existed. People were in the bushes taking pictures, but I feel like it really came to the forefront of people turning into detectives, even more so of hunting out spoilers with the era of Game of Thrones being in the mainstream, and then it's just gotten worse since then.
There was a guy who used the drone to film like the season 6 young Ned Stark fight with Arthur Dayne. I remember watching that shit. I'm like, holy fuck, is this what I think it is? The Tower of Joy? Oh my god! And no, you're kind of right.
Because it was almost every day of that. Like when we would talk a lot during that period, Carmine, it was every day. It was like another. Oh, I don't want to see this. I don't want to open this. You're like, oh, I heard this spoiler here. Let's not go anywhere near the free folk. I'm not going anywhere near that subreddit.
Oh, season 8 was fucking horrible because like you were there with us. Like we were doing the pregame show before the episode came out. And like assholes in the comment section would be like there trying to spoil shit. Like Bran dies in episode 3. Yeah, like.
But this is even worse because they're just giving it to us. Like I talk about like Terminator 2. I know one person who went into Terminator 2, having not seen the trailer, who was completely fooled by the fact that Arnold was the hero instead of the villain, because the movie is structured that way. They structure this whole first third of the movie like Arnold Schwarzenegger is the villain, and then it's revealed in this big reveal that he's the hero, and you're like, oh my god! Except it was in the trailer, and everyone knew that Schwarzenegger was the hero going in for most of the world. And you're like, how did you ruin like, you so ruined the art at that point. And so, I mean, we all knew that Q was going to be here, and so we didn't cream our pants like we should have.
No, I mean, in a very well depicted scene, and it was a good way of ending, but then I just think the element of surprise in art, especially TV and movies and like the visual art, is so important. And I used to want to hide from that stuff and be so surprised in the moment when you see the reveal of who the character is there, or what the conclusion of the story. I couldn't imagine a movie like The Usual Suspects coming out now with the big reveal ending like that, or other movies that have those big surprise endings. You'd be like, oh, I know what it is. I know what the ending is. I researched this the whole time. D'Artagnan is the villain, or whatever. But.
Yeah. Oh, well.
On that note, do you guys mind if we wrap it up here?
Oh, no.
Sounds good.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Picard Season 2. Phil, would you be down to join us for I'm Preston, I'm sorry, man. I don't think I can. Depending on how the next couple episodes go, I don't know if I want to. I might just want to binge this, and then like we'll do one final Season 2 full review. Phil, would you be down to join us for that?
I would love to. I'd love to join you guys at the end of the season and see if we were right at some of our predictions on the way this season's going to play out.
Also, Phil, would you also be down to join us for some House of the Dragon when that comes out?
Ooh, absolutely. I'll definitely be down to talk about that. I'm going to be going into it a little bit more ignorant than some people. I mean, I know the broad strokes of the story, but I've purposely stayed somewhat ignorant, so it's going to be fun to watch it. But I absolutely will be around for House of Dragon stuff with you guys.
Oh, I have a series not for you then. Overanalyzing House of the Dragon.
I'm still watching that because I'm still gonna watch that. Preston, come on, I'm a fan.
Okay.
But also, we I don't know if you noticed this, Phil. We have this other YouTuber, Trey the Explainer. He does a lot of paleontology, sciencey type of stuff. He'll be joining us every now and then too. So it'd be great to have you guys come in every in and now and then. And we, Preston, in case you haven't noticed this, we have a lot of like people we're going to be collabing with this year. So far, we've done with you, Trey, Men of the West.
Yeah.
Fuck, we gotta get.
We're forming a fellowship of nice guys that we like.
While you have my microphone. Sorry, that was cheesy.
Hopefully, we can get someone else. We already collaborated with Glidus. Hope we can get him in there as well. But Phil, we would love to bring you back on if you're down for some
Anytime,
more
my
Star
friend.
Trek stuff and some House of the Dragon stuff. But with that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.